Well, we talk a lot about drop shotting on this channel, but I've never really talked about the Wacky Drop Shot. So I wanted to go over it and really show you up close and personal some of the fish catching power that this rig has. So first off, I used two different stick baits. I used a 4-inch and then a traditional 5-inch, and I also used two different hooks as well. I used a number 1, not a 1/0, but a number 1 wide gap hook, and then the traditional mosquito hook. And the reason I did that is because stick baits have pretty good diameter to them, and depending on what you're comfortable with as far as the clearance down there, like the number 1 wide gap has got more room for that stick bait to sit than your traditional mosquito hook. And the nice thing about a Wacky Drop Shot is, one, on the fall, on the drop, it has that traditional Wacky rig shimmy to it. So that's super powerful, and you can definitely catch fish on the drop. So be aware of it as you're casting out your drop shot rig or your Wacky Drop Shot. But the other thing that's really neat about this rig is, unlike using a traditional drop shot lure, minnow bait, small worm, or whatever, where depending on the plastic, some of them kind of sit not the way we would want, and an angler has to impart action on them, right, to keep them up and looking more natural in the water column. Well, the Wacky Drop Shot is always sitting the way you would want it to. Yes, the weight of the stick bait is going to hold that hook down, but the lure is horizontal in the water column. Even when you're just holding it perfectly still, it's always going to be working for you. And one of the things that I really observed when I got up close and personal with this is when I would sit there and try to do nothing with the rod, no bouncing, no shaking, no anything, is this lure still had that very subtle lifelike action to it. Even with the larger 5-inch stick bait, which I thought was very, very interesting. I thought maybe it would just sit there and not do anything, but our natural movements in our arms when we're even trying not to move, or the natural movements in the current, still impart a really, really nice action to it. And then, of course, once you start to shake it, bounce, or vibrate it, then you have all kinds of action on that stick bait. So depending on the mood of the fish, this can really tell you a lot as an angler how they want it, but you can be confident it's always looking good and always working for you. The other nice thing with a Wacky Drop Shot, of course, it's going to work great vertically presented, right? You're sitting over those fish, dropping it down to them. But if you're fishing this drop shot more horizontally, the added weight, okay, of a salt impregnated stick bait gives you a ton of casting distance. And so often when we need a drop shot, the bite is tough, and that distance away from the fish is so important. And speaking of casting distance, if you want to watch a video that's just talks about an absolute game changer for spinning reels, make sure that you watch this one right here, and make sure that you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.